Good evening, Heart for the Community. Good evening, Facebook. Heart for the Community is back with you again. It's been a week, but we're back. We are continuing in our interview series, and tonight we have back for his third appearance Pastor Timothy E. Wright Sr. from Virginia Beach. He pastors the Victorious Living Ministries, Church of God in Christ, my home church at home, and he's my pastor emeritus. He has graced us before with his presence and his immense wisdom on several conversations about the family. And tonight will be a continuum of that. And specifically, we're going to talk about parenting. Our conversation will also get into some of the current events that are happening around us. We thank God for Pastor Wright. Pastor Wright, like I said before, is the senior pastor of Victorious Living Ministries Church of God in Christ. He's been a teacher in Norfolk and Virginia Beach Public Schools for over 40 years. He's got over 31 years of senior pastor experience. He's been married, I believe, just over 40 years now. Is it over 40 or just approaching 40, sir?
Going on 41.
That's what I'm talking about. He's already hit the 40 mark. He's the father of three children, grandfather of several, two bachelor's degrees, one in art education and one in religious studies, two master's degrees, one in divinity, and I believe one in mass communication. Am I correct, sir?
Communication.
Communication. All right.
Mhm.
And he has completed coursework for his doctoral degree. I believe that is in ministries or theology. Sir.
That's correct.
Wonderful. So I said all that to say this. When he begins to talk, he knows what he's talking about. So we welcome you once again, Pastor Wright. Thank God for your presence here, sir.
Well, good evening to you again and to all of you who have tuned in. It's good to be here, and I'm just elated to have been invited to come a third time. And I say again that Pastor Armstrong is doing a terrific job with this outreach ministry, and anything that I can do to enhance, more than willing to do so.
Amen. Well, thank you, Pastor Wright. For those of you who may not know, I do serve as Director of Operations for the Heart for the Community Initiative. I also serve locally here in ministry as the Assistant Pastor of the Spirit of Truth Deliverance Church in Dumfries, Virginia, where Apostle Larry G. Brown Sr. serves as Senior Pastor. He is also President and Visionary of Heart for the Community Initiative. So, Pastor Wright, in previous appearances here, talked about a litany of family issues, chiefly about the man and the father and those p words for what a father is, what the man of the household is. That was a tremendous lesson for us. And then he came back again and sewed up all those loose ends that we may have had the first time. But let me tell you something. I do know of him in his parenting role because I've seen it close up, and he doesn't know this because I don't think I've ever told him. But many things that I did in parenting, I modeled after what I saw in him, and I learned that I had a greater success once I began to model some of what he was doing. So, Pastor Wright, first question out the gate is, what is your parental philosophy, and where did you get it from?
Well, my philosophy is really holistic. Love is the key to it, and it has to be sincere and be an example. Be an example as a parent of what you expect out of the children. Oftentimes, we tell them what we want them to do, and some would declare, I'm the parent and you're the child. Do as I tell you. That's bitterness, and it brings about something that's developing in the child and something that would be regretted later. So, bottom line, being a model, being an example for the children, being an example in the house. The children need to see a true father. They need to see how father treats the mother. So, that modeling is very important for parenting. parenting is a calling. I know some say it's a job, but it's a calling. There's a big difference. One thing about a job, you can leave the job and find another one. But
Mm.
when it comes to a calling, we have to be committed to that. So I would say modeling, being a model in the home.
Wow. Who was your chief model? Or maybe there was more than one. Who did
Well,
you look at to know this is how I'm going to do it?
my chief model was my grandmother.
Mm.
My grandmother modeled what we should do as parents. And one thing, and I dare not forget that, we had uh, a ritual, something we did as a family every Sunday. At that time, we didn't have a car, but we would take hikes. Every Sunday, we would take hikes, all five of us. There were three of us being reared by my grandmother and step grandfather. And all of us would just walk. We would walk. Sometimes it was the same place at that time here in the Princess Anne County area, now Virginia Beach. We had the ferry. We didn't have the Bay Bridge. So it was just joyful to see that big ferry coming in and going out. And we would do that. That was one of our pastime things to do. But it became
Mhm.
a ritual. We look forward to doing that. It was fun.
Wow. Well, let me ask you, have you seen that the change in the times, the change in the generation, has that affected your method of parenting? I'm sure that you, well, I can't say I'm sure, but I'll ask you, your children are now
Mhm.
adults, but you have grandchildren who are small. Do you see a big difference in your philosophy or your approach to how you view your children and now how you view grandchildren and this younger generation?
Mhm. Well, actually, some traditions you don't want to erase. The things may change. For an example, I spoke of the walks that we would have, the hikes. That can be substituted because we have so much now with technology. So, to answer the question, there have been some changes, but even so, the idea is not just a particular thing. Certainly, I don't need to walk to see a ferry now, but some of the things of just doing something with the children. We can play with the children. My grandmother played ball with us. So, with the technology that's available, they can show us now some things we can do with them. So I think it's good when we engage our children to see where their interests lie, and they can help us and keep us up to date as to some things we can do with them. And there again, we're spending time with the children. So times have changed, but as far as the idea, that should maintain. That's a problem because with so many being busy, sometimes working two and three jobs, they feel that there's no time that they can spend with the children, but not so. We may not be able to spend 2 and 3 hours walking, but we can spend that time and it's very meaningful. The children will remember that. And I think that's important because they too will become adults. And if they have no memories, that's going to be very difficult. But when they can look back and share their story, and that's important, share your story with your children. My children know my story. Then they'll have an appreciation for who I am, and it helps to bridge the gap. Oftentimes, there's a generational gap because of an understanding, and we should share our story with our children. Now, biblically, it was commanded that we teach this to our children and our children's children. They need to know. Generations need to know the story. Then that history will not be erased. They'll be able to tell that to their children. So it's very important to spend that time. I know when it comes to sitting at the table, very few do that now, but somehow or another, that time needs to be shared. They need to hear the story, even though things have changed.
Did you find that as your children got into adolescence, young adulthood, and now being mature adults, that you telling your story, sharing things like that, did it become more important to them? Were they grasping more? Could you see them growing from you telling your story?
Well, actually, when I look at my children in the adolescent stage and now adults, my wife and I can see things that we modeled for them now. And some of the things that they love, it wasn't a push. For an example, they love church, they love serving the Lord. That was modeled in our home. Now, they may have shifted in the way they do it because they now adults, they do things that's best in that setting. Some things they take into the marital situation, and some things may not. It depends on what will work there. But I'm seeing that generation after generation. We have three generations now, and I see that the children have a love for God, a love for church. So they hold on to these, and I can. And it's not just that, but I see them as being children in ministry. They know that they are called to serve, and that's what they do. They serve oftentimes in helping people, ministering to them, praying for them. I just listen, and in my heart, I'm saying, praise God, to God be the glory. And let me back up a little because I want to talk about the importance. Now, we hear time and time again that it takes a village to raise the children, and I agree with that. Parenting is not limited to the biological parents. Parenting can come, in other words, we need each other to help us. And thank God my children grew up in a community where they were surrounded by people who really helped us to raise our children. And that's very vital, especially in this 21st century. You have parents who are really busy, and it's good to know what your children are doing. How can you know when you're not there? So that has been a great blessing to for those who have helped in rearing the children. And I can't really talk about it enough, but I'm going to cut it pretty short. I know there are other things you want to cover.
Oh, you hit a home run with that one because I want to explore that. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. It does take a village. And I learned this on the job. It's been my experience that it does not matter how much education parents have, how much exposure, how much knowledge. I don't believe there's no two parents that have everything that their children need. The children need the village to learn and be exposed to different things. How did you
Mhm.
learn how to trust with that treasure with your children?
Well, first of all, I'm going to know them. I'm going to know who they are.
That's right.
I want to know what they do. And usually the ones who become those parenting uh, friends or associates, we know them. They're not someone just who comes right into their life because we have to protect them. We're responsible for that. And I mentioned about father in particular being protected. So I'll listen to you. I have conversation with you. I will worship with you. And I'm observing you. So I don't just and whatever you tell them, the children know. Don't keep it. I want to know what happened at that house. What did you all talk about? And you need to know what's happening with your children. I don't just send them to anyone. I don't just send them. I want to make sure we know them. We didn't send our children to any place. And when we would have these conferences, many parents were glad to get them out the house. So they send them. No, if you're going, one of us will be there with you. So we spent a lot of time in our children's life. We had to do it because everything that glitter is not gold. Just because they said a Christian, Christians have hangups just like other people. And you got to be protective of the children. I love people deal. I believe the saints, but like anything else, we are yet becoming.
That's right. Thank God for the village, but we know there may be somebody in the village that just ain't right.
That's
Amen.
true. Well, let me back up for a little, Elder. One thing, the emphasis is on the parent. The parents are the first teachers. And I know before I left for school, for church, wherever I went, there were some values that were instilled in me. There were some things that I was taught to do and not to do. I was taught what to do when someone approached me. So the children know, and you have to teach the children, and certainly start early. That training or that training begins in the womb. It's not when the child is born. There's some interaction that takes place with the child in the womb. I communicated with my children. We communicated with our children in the womb.
Hmm.
The music playing, all of that talking, all of that is a part of that communication process. So when they come here in a place of warmth, and it's not new. They can sense when they're being touched in the womb. They can sense, they can pick up on those voices, and they can distinguish. So it starts with the parents. We have to be the first teachers, not just to put them off on someone else to do what we are supposed to do.
Wow. Start from the womb. You've
Yes.
had a tremendous journey in your parenting because your children are adults and have been married and have children of their own. You've seen this process. How do you measure progression or regression with your children? And then how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure parenting now is different than it was 20, 25 years ago. You're dealing with adults now. So how do you measure that progression or maybe even regression? And how do you deal with it?
How do I deal with it? One thing, I respect them as adults. That can be a challenge. Oftentimes, that child never reached the place of adulthood. Is my boy, is my baby, and it's okay using those terms, but they need to know. I need to know that they are adults. And sometimes, especially when you're talking about the married ones, when they become married, uh, I shift because now it's no more just my daughter. I have a son. It's no more just so. Bottom line, I have to hear what they have to say. Now, if there's something that I would like to share, I'll share that. But once I share it, it's up to them to make a decision. I can make choices for them as an adult. I can share some things, or if they ask me, they invite me in, then I'll share. But I have to respect them as adults now. But certainly, if I see some parenting doesn't end, and I'm sure that's what you're saying, parenting does not end because they become adults. My grandmother was 92, and I would sit and listen. There's wisdom that they have, and it's important to listen. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but I believe that wisdom will help us in knowing what to do or what not to do. It's not always, oh, that doesn't apply. It does apply to you, but you have to know what will work for you at this point, and maybe something that can be used down the road. But whether it be something we agree or they agree with or disagree, it's good to receive, to be open, not to be rebellious. That's worse than witchcraft, but to be open. And it's not just the parent, as we said earlier, village. Sometimes we get this. Now, my wife and I, in our adult, of course, we were adults when we got married, but we spent a lot of time with older people who had been where we were coming. And as a result, we have this reservoir of knowledge, information that we've gotten by just being around older people. And my children, they too have spent time around older people, even. And one of my daughters got a recipe from one of the church mothers that I didn't know, but I tell you what, it's really good. I like the way she makes rice pudding, and everybody can't do that. But here, being around that older saint, look what she has, look what she received. So it's important. But I do know that they are adults, so I don't take over. And it's bad when parents get in that situation anyway. Stay out of their business and let them invite you in.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's another area I wanted to explore. I have seen there's adult children, and I've seen the parent who I'm not sure is a thing where they don't want to let go or maybe don't understand the role. I am your father, and I said you're going to do such and such. You're talking to a 45-year-old man. How do you deal when there's a conflict? In other words, you may be given guidance, but you have one of those children, all your children are grown, they're saying, hey, dad, I think I want to go a different direction. How do you deal with parental authority when you at that stage?
Mhm. Well, sometimes it's hard for parents to let go, especially when it comes to, I don't say especially, but I know sometimes that happens with a mother and son. My grandmother, she didn't want to let me go. I was her baby. But here, this baby has a wife. Babies don't have one. So sometimes you have to make a strong decision. And it's not like disrespecting, but in a firm way, in a loving way. Mom, I love you dearly, but that's not working. Or going and do what you know you're going to do. Just let them talk because they ain't going home. They're not living with you. But in one thing, we have to respect them. That's my point. We have to respect them, but we can make them change the way they feel. We can emphasize it. We can talk about it. But our responsibility is to respect, just like we can hear, but we're not really tuning that part in. Sometimes we have to do that with our parents.
Thank you. I'm sure somebody got free with that one.
It's
Well,
not an easy thing now. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. But you just keep on working with it. Then after a while they'll see, Mama, it took a while for me to convince a significant other that I am a man now, and I don't want to carry it any further. They may be listening. They'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
well,
Oh
Pastor Wright,
Lord.
I gotta ask you, with everything that's going on now in our nation, and the thing that's staring us right in the face is these recent killings of black men by police. You and I both know that this is not new. Uh,
No.
you came up during the era of civil rights. You have stories that I do not. I have
Hmm.
dealt with racism right in the face, dealing with people out in the community and with law enforcement. With the type of things that we see now, how does that affect the way you parent and deal with not only your children, but your grandchildren? I know for me, when I tell this to my Caucasian friends, sometimes it's unbelievable to them. But I remember the first time I gave my son the keys to the vehicle for him to go by himself. I spent a lot of time crying and praying after he left the home, and it was for his safety. I was
Hmm.
worried about the gangsters. I can deal with them. I was worried about the police.
Hmm.
And I think many of our Caucasian counterparts don't have to worry about that part. So
Hmm.
the big question here is, how does this thing, and now it's in the forefront, but for us, it's an ongoing thing. It's in the nation's forefront now. But how does that drive how you advise or guide your children and grandchildren?
Hmm. Well, especially the males in my family. As you stated, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. And this has been happening, and you're dealing with a generation now who are going to express this we can't take, we will not take. But to prepare the children, you got to tell them some things that you hope will work if they are stopped by the policeman. Because we tell them where to put their hands and yes, sir, and all of that. But sometimes when you have someone who's a racist, it doesn't matter really what you say. I was walking and I was about 16 or 17 years old, walking to work. I ended up sitting in the back of in a police car because I was walking. I did
Mm,
absolutely nothing. And that was back in the 70s. But the thing is, we have to really help our young people to know, especially those who are graduating there, 18. They need to register. Parents need to make sure that they have registered. They need to vote. They need to become an active part of the community. A lot of the change that is needed will take place with this new generation. They have a different thrust. They don't mind standing up. They don't mind speaking out. They need to become active in their community, in the local, in the state. My son, I think it was 14 when he became a page there for the assembly in Richmond. But look at what he's receiving. He's learning, and that may be a motivator to hear what's happening and how laws are made. So it's important for our children to take an active part, be intelligent, and learn all you can learn. But you really have to look out for yourself
mm.
because you can be pulled over for no apparent reason. We're in a dangerous state, and I'm praying that there will be change. And every time I get a chance, I will speak out against it. It is wrong, it hurts. And here I am with grandchildren, and I have to sit down and talk. We should be able to sit down and just talk about great things, great experiences. But here you have to warn the children. You don't know. And I even tell them, be careful of being out at night. My grandmother used to say, night doesn't have any eyes.
Mm,
I mean, it's good that we have the video things now we can take, but what good is that going to do to one who's dead? It's good that we have that, but we have to talk to our children and make sure that they just follow whatever is being, directed. But get home. You don't need to be out there 1, 2, and 3 o'clock. You going coming from work, fine. But
mm,
get in the house. Your protection is in that haven, home. And I
mm.
know it's old fashioned because they want to have fun. You have fun, then somebody go to shooting, and the police come, they knock you out, and you innocent.
That's
It's a
right.
problem, and it needs to be fixed from the top all the way down. It needs to be fixed. The leadership needs to stand out, but the leadership we have now is poor.
Mm,
It is simply poor, and I don't want to get on his topic, but nonsense. Just as what I saw on television yesterday was about self, SEL. Oh Lord, let me go because I get uptight about that. And who intelligent representative? I mean, Democrat, Republican, what difference does it make? Ignorance. When you feed that, you get yourself killed.
that's right.
Destroy. We will destroy ourselves from the inside out, America, unless we bring a halt to this nonsense. Oh, wow.
Sir, how are you dealing with what you see on TV now? We see demonstrations all over America, and it's not just in the urban areas. If my information was right, I think even in Tidewater, the HRBT, the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, was closed down for a little while on Saturday. Demonstrations. I saw the Norfolk police chief marching with all over America, and not just our nation. Now we're hearing from other nations. They can very plainly see there is a huge problem. I know how it has affected me. How are you dealing with what you see? I'll just leave it like that. I'm gonna let you go with that.
But as you were talking, I'm thinking about what I said initially. Parents are the first teachers. So we are talking about a learned behavior. One thing, children trust parents. We model for them, they trust us, and that's what they're going to do. And some of this, as stated, will go right into adulthood. So we're dealing with a behavior that is taught. And it would have to be to the place where children will see, or the adults will say, Mom, this is wrong. Just like you were asking me earlier. This is not right. So you're asking how I deal with it. To be honest with you, I don't have an answer for that. I don't have an answer. The only thing that comes to me, the one thing that comes to me, what can I do? Right? What can I do to be a part of the change that's needed? And as a minister of the gospel, I dare not sit back and say nothing. Now, I don't understand some of the others seeing all of this when we celebrate and embrace the Prince of Peace. And that, if we're talking about the peace that Jesus gives, why aren't we presenting this same message when we see stuff like this? It should have been presented way before now. Now, Mr. Floyd ignited some things, but this is not new.
Mhm.
And we are silent about a lot of things. The evangelists, and surely, and I'm not trying to put any of them down, but we sure know how to get on the television and ask to sow here and sow there. Who's going to keep sowing into ground of a ministry that does not speak up and against this kind of stuff? That's in the scripture.
Mm.
So if we're going to live it, if we're going to preach it, then we certainly need to live it and stand up. Voices need to be heard. And again, it's not about a certain party. It's about outright sin. It's wrong. So I'm dealing with it the best I know how.
Mm.
And I'm going to teach it to my children. Love and respect. But hey, you got to watch and pray. Watch and pray.
Mm. I want to remind our audience, if you have a comment or a question, please feel free to. I'm sure you're catching us either on the Heart for the Community Initiative Facebook page. You may be catching us on my
Mm.
personal Facebook page, or for all of the YouTube viewers on Carl's Conversations, just go ahead and type your questions or comments. If you got a good one, I'll pass it along to Pastor Wright and we'll see if we can answer it for you. Pastor, I know this may be a hot potato here, but you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to stress the importance of the parents taking care of themselves.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, we take care of the children, but parents need to take care of themselves. And think about it. When we get on an airplane and the stewardess show us all these things to do, the first one to be covered is you, not the children. If you don't take care of yourself, then you aren't able to do what is needed to be the parent. So take care of yourself, do things for yourself. And I'm not just talking about buying things, but when it comes to your health, fitness, staying physically fit, you know, children want you out there running and playing, and you run maybe about a couple of yards and then your knees and legs start hurt. That means keep it going every day. And it's not just that when it comes to your health, eating, the things. What I'm really saying, in order for us to really take care of the children and to model for them, we're going to have to take care of ourselves. Then we can have that time to spend with them. But if we don't take care of ourselves, sometimes it's taking a break away from the children. I know we love them. They are gifts. They're gifts of God. And we need to realize that's God has given them to us, and we're blessed to have children. But there comes a time when you need to take a break from the children. And if both father and mom cannot do it at the same time, then one take a break and another take a break. But it's good when you're able to do it together. And a grandparent or someone you trust can take care of the children. Your children will be all right. It may not be the same way you would do it, but your children will be all right. You need that time away.
All right. Well, we've talked about a lot of things with parenting. You said you took the conversation right back to parenting, so I'm going to stay there. How about grandparenting?
Mhm.
What jewels have you found in grandparenting, and how did you deal with that as opposed to you dealt when you were the frontline parent?
I don't spank my grandchildren. They're too sweet. I don't want to spank them. That was for my children, and I don't
Ah,
like them being spanked. I
oh,
step in. I become the protector for the children to keep them from being spanked. I'm getting so. That was hilarious to me. Now you got to ask that question again. What was that question? Could you?
yes, I can. You're Deidre has something to say about that. But anyway, grandparenting as opposed to parenting? What jewels have you found in being a grandfather as opposed to being the father when you were the primary? Now I have a grandson too, so we're secondary. And so, what are
Mm,
the jewels that you found and the differences in your grandparenting other than your parenting?
well, I think just like the children, my children, they brought joy into my life, and to see that duplicated with grandchildren, it's just more joy. It's more joy. So it's not like a significant difference because I love them dearly and they make me smile. My children did the same thing. They are entertainers. But I think the major thing is really, I don't want to spank them. Whatever they want, I'll give it to them. And for my children, since it was a training process raising them. Some things they had to be denied of, and it wasn't all the time affordability, but it was part of them understanding. You don't get everything you want,
Hmm.
but now with those grandchildren, I'm subject to take them all over the place. Whatever they get school bugs, that's about the size of it. But even so, I have restrictions. I don't take it to first, second, and third degree. Some would do that. I don't want to do that. But there's joy in having grandchildren. And again, the major thing, I don't like to spank them. I want them to be uptight.
Well, as you can see, when you start talking about those spankings, that elicited some compliments, some comments, and David, you
Oh,
said you saved him a couple times.
I sure did. And I explained it in such a way until his mom received it out, maybe out of respect, or she saw my point. But I said, oh, no, no, think of
And you see, Deidre, no spankings for them. But Pastor Wright, if you save the grandchildren, who was there to save your children?
Well, they didn't need to be saved. They didn't need to be saved because it didn't take a lot. I didn't have to do an awful lot. But the thing they saw some things that shifted from the way they were reared that and my grandchildren because I was in at that time um, the church. I'm not going to say the church, but the religious order. There were so many restrictions, and I had to grow up to the place to see that's not in the Bible.
Amen. Amen.
But they were deprived of a lot of things, and I don't call it a mistake. Oftentimes, well, if it hadn't been, sometimes there's purpose in it, and we don't see it until later. So I can't altogether put it down because I was in both places. I came up in the Baptist church as well as the Pentecostal church. So I had some liberties that I did not have when I came into this body. But then as I grew, I found that, some these are more alike than they are different. And some of this, I'll leave it like that.
Well, I tell you what, as soon as you mentioned those spankings, the comments started thread here. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to show all of them.
Well, I saw a couple. But see, I had to prepare them for parenting so
Hmm.
that they would know what not to model.
That's right. Well, I tell you what, even now, that corporal punishment is a hot topic for some. Uh, I don't shy away from it. I think it was a useful tool. Uh,
Hmm.
and my rearing, I will be quite honest with you. I think that if my parents had spared the rod, I'd
Hmm.
most likely have done some penitentiary time. There were some things
Yeah,
I didn't get into. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
but I agree with that. But I also think it's important for us to monitor the discipline. Sometimes those spankings were at a time when they were angry. And I don't believe in dealing with a child when you're full of anger. You need to calm down because that's going to come out on the child and it ends up in that area being abusive. So I don't know about that. I, if we put the emphasis on what the children should do and be the model for them and praise them for those great things they do. Some parents capitalize on what they didn't do, and I mean come down hard on what they didn't do. But when they start doing, it's minimized. It's not really expressed in the same, use that same energy. In fact, it should be multiplied when they do the right thing. As a teacher, I know that I have children or students who have some challenges. But when they do just the little thing, it's a celebration. And everyone in that class is going to celebrate with me. So the same thing. And don't make the mistake of saying what the child will not be, slapping the kid upside the head. That is negative, and you're putting that in the child, and you wonder why he or she is passive when it comes to dealing with things that they should be dealing with. You caused it.
Mm,
So you have to really use wisdom in dealing with children. You don't want to call them out of their name. And I see it sometimes, and you just have to be careful as to correcting a parent that you don't know, unless the Holy Spirit surely leads you to do that, because they'll turn on you. What you got to do with it? But
that's
I
right.
see this, and I'm really torn when I see a child being slapped just to say, come on and keep up with me. Their legs are not as long as yours. So parents need to think, and some don't.
Well, you said it.
Yes, I did.
I I agree. I absolutely agree, and I will tell you that my oldest daughter, she said something not too long ago. When I was that age, if I had done something such and such about the youngest, you would have reacted a certain way. And I said, yes, dear, you're correct, and I don't deny it. But
Mm-hmm.
you're 10 years her senior, and that means I have 10 years of growth and maturity, and
Mm-hmm.
I see things a little different.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry that you had to get the slap, but now I see I can handle that a different way.
yeah.
But
Oh.
I absolutely agree on accentuating the positive, and that is something that I learned along the way, especially when you have a child who may be a little different, a little troubled. We even did that in the military, and I never understood it at first, and I caught on when we
Mm-hmm.
had a soldier who had issues. One of the ways we used to correct was to put them in charge,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast majority of the time, it worked. You saw a much different person when you gave them some responsibility and held
Mm-hmm.
them accountable as you will hold a leader. And I believe that some of that is true when it comes to parenting.
I agree. I agree. And I'm
Yes, sir.
smiling because I'm thinking about a student I had when I put him in charge. That behavior calmed down. but he felt like he was somebody. And that's really what children want. They want to be loved. They want you to be parents. They don't want you to try to be their buddy. And if that's what parents are doing, what a grave mistake. And I see some now, if you are 80 and you have holy jeans on, that doesn't match you. They look at you and say, what in the world? So, you need to act the age. Be who you are. Be who you are. And I'm not saying we have to look antiquated, but some things don't work for us, but they work for these younger people. Just like when we were that age, I couldn't imagine my grandmother wearing platform shoes. That was in the 70s. I wore them, but to see her with those on, something going on with grandma. Got to be, yeah, respect you for that.
Amen. When it comes to having fun with your children, how did you know when it was time, what types of things to do, to loosen up and maybe take off the authoritarian hat for a moment and just play or have some type of fun with them being loosened? How did you know when and how to do that?
Well, that was an integral part. It wasn't like, this is the time now. Come on, everybody. If I felt it, if they felt it, hey, we go. If I see, I would get a box, a cardboard box. Hey, let's go for a ride. We're in the house. But those are the things they remember. You don't need to have all of this. Sometimes those little things like a cardboard box will make a big difference. You get them a wagon, they roll it once or twice, then the thing is turned upside down in the back of the yard. So whenever that time comes, it can be spasmodic. You don't have to wait a particular time. Uh, Sometimes, hey, who want a horseback ride? Hey, jump on my back and go and see. That's a great place for the man. They need to see that you are not just a stone, but that
Hmm.
you can laugh. Now you know I can laugh.
That's
You
right.
ought to see a lot of laughter, but in this home, we could we could do that. And with the grandchildren, silly things, but we have fun. And just riding along, I just said, well, who can yell the loudest? Put the windows up, man. We had simple things. So when they see me, they smile. That's the way my students are. When they see me, they go to smiling because I had fun with the children, middle school age. And when they see me, I see nothing but teeth. Mr. Right. Because have fun. Let it be a part. It doesn't have to be this isolated. This is who you are. They should know that dad can laugh instead of sitting there with his feet crossed with a pipe in his mouth and smoking and reading the paper. Oh, I know that's not the case now. That's Dennis the Menace's fault or somebody's fault. But the thing is, have fun with the children. They are wonderful. And they need to know that you are dad, but yet dad can play. There's a child in each of us, and you don't have to lose that child that's in you. You can be 85 and still have that child in you.
All right. If this version of Timothy E. Wright Sr. could speak to that version of Timothy E. Wright of 30 years ago and that stage of your parenting, what would you tell him?
If I could speak to that young Timothy right now, I would say, man, you did a great job. Or you are doing a great job. And now I see that you have developed even more, but you have not lost that playfulness that you had then. You can laugh, and they know when you're serious. They back up and respect that. I don't have to say, I'm serious now. They know. Even my grandchildren, they know. And they know when they can come and pull all over my beard, rub all over my head, pinch me or whatever but then they know. All I have to do is look. They'll know that's not the time. So that young Timothy is still present in this senior Timothy. He's not old, he's still young. It's just the age. That's the only difference. Well, I won't say it's the only difference. I can't run like I used to. I used to could really run fast, fast, fast. I
Hmm.
can run, but not fast, fast, fast. If I tried to run or race my grandson Xavier, he'll take off and I'll take off too. But you may have to peel me up by the time.
Now, when you said that was the only difference, I was not going to disagree with you. I just had some thoughts. I'm
Is
just saying.
Could you give me one of your thoughts?
Not on air. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
That's all right. This has been an amazing conversation. I think that you have shared with us and our audience some great nuggets of wisdom about
Mm-hmm.
parenting, even as much as I have watched you over the last 18, 19 years. I picked up
Mm-hmm.
a few things here, and I thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Before uh, we part, is there anything else that maybe we didn't cover that you would want to say to the audience about whether it was the current events that we
Mm-hmm.
talked about or parenting? The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I want to go back to the parenting piece. I think it's important for parents to know what the children are doing, what your child is doing. And that means you have to be involved, a part of that child's life to the place that you know what they're watching on television, what games they're playing, especially you need to know that. You need to know who they're talking to. You say, well, that's their phone, that's their business. No, it's not. You are still parenting, and the child is still under your jurisdiction, under your care. And we are responsible for raising the children. So we need to know some of the things they like, and they may not like every kind of all music that you like, and it's okay, but you need to be acquainted with it. And if it's music that should not be heard, explain why. That's very important. And certainly when it comes to their schoolwork, know what the children are doing, be a part of their educational growth development, be a part of that, know what's happening with your child, know what's happening. I've known parents to take the door off of their bedroom
Mm,
to let them know, but you need to know. I really give my children credit when they started courting or whatever they called that. It wasn't an isolated thing. We met every one of those, the ones that said that they were going steady, whatever that means, but they were apart. And even when they became adults, college students, high school, those kids came into our home. And I thought I was supposed to go upstairs. They said, no, Dad, stay down here with us. I applaud my children for doing that. Their friends became not so much our friends, but like our sons and our daughters. And even now, some, if they're in the area, they will stop right into our home to visit us if they're in the area. Some have moved on, but that's very important. I think it speaks volume when your children want you to be where they are and to know what they're doing and to be a part of their social life. And I really applaud my children for doing that because oftentimes they want to get away. They don't want you to know this, but they weren't like that. And my wife and I were blessed that their friends, we were a part of that.
thank you for that. That's another nugget. So, Pastor Wright, take some time to tell us about what's going on and your ministry there at VLM. Anything you want our audience to know about?
Well, I tell you what, I give thanks to my family. It seemed like everything's a family affair, but that's just the way God made it. And but this virtual worship has really been a blessing, and the technology that I've learned, those skills, it's been a blessing. And I believe the audience, virtual congregation, are being blessed. And I just thank God for that. and we dealt with a great series on the peace of Christ, and it was just awesome. And as I was thinking, June and July, these months are months where you're dealing with engagement, marriage, and all of that. So we're going to be dealing with that. That's our next thing. We'll begin this Thursday. We're going to talk about the family. We're going to deal with, do the series on the Christian home and the family. And we are going back to these different roles. When we learn our role based on what God has ordained for us, we have a better family. Oftentimes we're trying to operate on what I call the generator instead of the real source. God is our source. So we're going to talk about marriage. We're going to talk about the sanctity of marriage. We're going to talk about the role of the man, the father, or the husband, the role of the wife. Then we're going to deal with the parents, the role that they play in the family. We're going to talk about the roles of the children. We're going to deal with conflict, because conflict is inevitable in the home, and we're going to deal with how. And that should will carry into other areas when we know how to deal with conflict. And that's really what you were talking about earlier. What can we tell our children if they're stopped by the police or whomever? How to deal with that? And so we're going to cover that. We're even going to deal with single. There's a place in there too. And finally, we'll be dealing with divorce. And I know that's a taboo word for some, but not altogether. God doesn't look at it like we sometimes look at it. We'll dismiss a person, but I don't believe that's the love of God. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be coming on Facebook Live and dealing with that beginning Thursday.
All right. For those of you who missed it, Pastor Wright, every Sunday morning at 10 a.m., he is preaching in this virtual world on the Victorious Living Ministries Facebook page. And for all you other pastors out there, I know some of y'all go on at 10 a.m. also. There's no competition. There's enough unsaved folks out there for all of us to pack our churches full. But somebody may
True.
like his flavor. And so we want for those of you who are watching this and you like what you hear and you want to join Pastor Wright on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on the Victorious Living Ministries Facebook page, please do that. Also on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. There is the VLM. Is it the VLM Academy? Did I say that right?
Yes, that's correct.
The VLM
Yes.
Academy, right there on the Victorious Living Ministries, and we call it VLM. For those of us who are familiar, that's just what we call it, VLM. Uh, it's Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. VLM Academy. He's teaching, and that series that he was just talking about, that's where you're going to catch that excellent, 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 excellent teaching. I still tune in, and I've been going for quite a while. Matter of fact, I still send money. You ought to try it too. Amen.
Yes, you do. And we thank you for that. Very appreciative. Very appreciative.
So, Pastor Wright, once again, we are very thankful. Now, we're going to be inviting you back again because you are pretty popular on our airwaves here. And we're going to hope you're going
I
to keep
am.
telling us yes. Yes, you are.
Listen. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a joy. And as I'll say there at Victoria's Living, I'm sure you remember me saying this: take fast hold of instruction, let her not go, keep her, for she is thy life.
Amen to that. So, for our audience, we thank you once again. You're always so good to us. We ask that you do create watch parties and share this video. We don't want to keep this type of wisdom only amongst ourselves, but share it all over your social media platform. We want to get this information out so that people will come to Christ and come to growth. We need to grow, and it is these kind of forums that allow us to grow. So thank God for Pastor Wright. Thank God for his family and Victoria's Living, who has loaned him to us. We're very thankful for that. Heart for the community, you're awesome. And all of the other groups that have come with us. We're just so glad. We don't have anything scheduled as of yet for this coming week. I'll be quite honest with you. Our current state of affairs has moved me, and some things that I had planned I'm changing them because I really want to deal with these issues. I'm not going to let it go. It's time to strike. The time is now, and we will deal with it. So God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. And until next time, bye bye.